All right. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Grow Up with Grow show. I'm Brett Schklar. I'm your cruise director and happen to also be a managing partner at Grow Powerful. Now, there's a lot of marketing shows that are out there, and we pride ourselves in this not being a marketing show for marketers, but this is a show about growth, about marketing as a tool for CEOs, for investors, and for chief revenue officers, basically people who can leverage marketing in the right way to get more stuff done and to win in the game of business. And so now on with the show. And today's topic is finding your competitive advantage as a purpose-driven company. And I'm excited about this topic for two reasons. Number one, it is a chance for Gary and I to share ideas together. And anytime I get on a call or a phone call or a client activity with Gary, it's just awesome. And then Gary, I'll have you introduce yourself in a minute when I brag about you for a minute. But the other reason is we get to talk about the fundamental things that companies should be doing, but how do you turn it into your competitive advantage? And right now we're in 2023, it's kind of been chaotic and things are tightening down in the tech world. Competitive advantage is more important now than ever before because some people are trying to grow by stealing your piece of the pie. And we have ways to help you stop them from doing that. So let me introduce you to Gary Van Prooyen. So first of all, what I love about Gary the most is that he is one of the original iCMOs here at Grow Powerful. He is the OG, or what I like to call the Grow G, as one of the original gangsters of Grow. And so super lucky that you've been a part of this journey. I've learned a lot from you. It's been a ton of fun. In addition to that, and I think the reason why it might be beneficial for you to listen to what Gary has to say is Gary's got incredible tech marketing leadership under his belt, working for companies like AT&T, SBC Ameritech, Zebra Technologies, that was, what Motorola was before, and has been through some awesome things. In fact, Gary, I spoke yesterday to somebody that you worked with at Zebra that you introduced me to. We got a chance to talk yesterday, and it was basically a Gary love fest. So I won't go into the details. I'll spare you.
Boy. Oh boy.
It was good stuff. What I love about Gary is he knows, and he's working with earlier stage companies and mid-stage companies, but he knows how to get that foundation in place so that we're not having to reset, rewind, and redo things. He knows how to put those foundations in place and set companies up for success. He loves brand storytelling and has helped more than a dozen major companies launch new brands, integrate acquisition brands, and refresh their brands. He also happens to be, and I think you're going to hear this come across today, an advocate and evangelist for purpose-driven companies, something that we're going to dive into. So Gary, welcome, say hello to everybody, and let's answer a key question as you're saying hello and talking about yourself.
Okay.
And please share your, say hello to everybody, but then also talk to us about your superpower when it comes to this stuff.
Okay. Superpowers. Well, that's always good to do on a day. Nice to be here with everyone. Again, as Brett said, I'm Gary Van Prooyen, and happy and proud to have been one of the OGs of Grow. So it's been just a great experience and fun to be amongst the camaraderie and the knowledge base of a group of some of the smartest minds in tech marketing. So it's been great. Superpower. I don't know that it's an inherent superpower, but I will tell you it served me very well in that many years ago, I was working closely with a sales VP, and we were at the beginning of like the era of the demand generation and the demand waterfall. And he said something to me that struck a chord, and I've never forgotten it, and I've never let it not come into play with my clients, and that is marketing needs to take a number. And I really believe that. And I've known far too many people in my life who work in marketing and are talented, but like to hide behind the marketing is, plays some level of influence, but don't pin me down. I can't necessarily quantify it. And in today's, business world, you just cannot, stand for what you do as a marketer without being able to say, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I will step up and own a number. I will commit to it and, develop a plan, work it, and create contingencies until we get it. So I don't know that it's an inherent, skill that I have and only I have, but I was smart enough to listen to an important sales colleague along the way and say, if marketing ever wants to be loved by sales, step into a room and say, what's the number that I could sign up for? And I've always believed it.
I love that. And I think that's even more important as we talk about what we're going to talk about today. And the question mark comes, well, how does that really hit the bottom line of a company?
Sure.
So
Yep.
I love that you framed it that way. I love that that's your superpower. And that makes it even more valid for you to be the one to share how to use a purpose-driven company or how a purpose-driven company with purpose is a competitive advantage. So
Big advantage. Yep.
let me ask you this question. We're in 2023. It's a different world than it was. It could be better, could be worse. Things are sort of in flux in the tech world. What have you seen as a winning formula for marketing leadership in 2023?
One of the things that I have noticed that is a change is I think 5 or 10 years ago, there was a case, if you wanted to be competitive in the marketing space, there was a case kind of the haves and the have-nots. And a lot of it was actually dictated, your success was dictated by scale. So the big players got to participate in a whole lot of, of the more innovative kind of marketing channel opportunities. And I see that has just turned on its ear over the last year or two. And what I'm most excited about is I think now, companies that are beginning their journey to really become marketing driven and marketing oriented have just a host of opportunities to really create a really compelling mix with what's out there. So I have clients who are working, who are not yet in a position to maybe make the investment in a formal CRM, but they're doing all the CRM-like activities through a number of tools that we've introduced or that they've introduced to us, things like Apollo.io. I think through social, that's kind of democratized the ability to get messaging out, not only messaging about products and promotions and so forth, but to really help companies establish who they are and use that also to attract even talent to their company. People are a growing wave wants to understand who is this place before I come on board. So you see that as well. And then, just a variety of companies also seeing, the power of inbound through what I would say is, a much more attainable way of understanding what you can do with SEO. And so I've just seen a number of clients who probably 6 months ago would have said, we don't have the budget to do all of those, those channel activities that we see the, bigger players do. And I think we've debunked that and showed them that you can create a wonderful marketing mix of outbound and inbound and social and organic SEO. And it's really exciting for, I think, players to recognize that, they can be in the big leagues.
And so that's awesome. And that is, the leveling the playing field, allowing people to compete because it's no longer a David versus Goliath. Everybody has the same tools, Obviously, ChatGPT has been a big conversation about how it makes the little people and the big people all sort of, get
the same.
But it's that, there is it used to be that you would have to do a press release in order to, get information out, and that costs money. And then you have to have an agency and yada, yada, yada. Now, everybody has that same access to everything, which is amazing.
Yeah. But,
and so that probably makes it even more important. Sorry, go ahead, Gary. I know you're.
No, I'm probably going where you're going. And I would say, but even as we talk about that, the ability for a lot of these players, what I've often seen though is, when you are moving into a kind of an omni-channel or multi-channel kind of marketing perspective, it becomes even more important as opposed to we're taking a singular tactic of really understanding this. What is the unique reason that my company exists today? Yeah. And I mean, I know that sounds so basic and fundamental, but you'd be surprised how many companies, if you pin them down and said, what is the unique role that your company plays in the world, would struggle to answer that question. And it's imperative. because it's much more than a positioning statement. It's much more than a brand campaign. It really is the core DNA of what makes us get up every day and go to work every day, what drives us to win, and so forth. So I do think purpose is as relevant today as it's ever been.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And it plays very well into our conversation today that purpose is even more important because the people who have purpose have a better competitive advantage. And so, let's define purpose for a minute,
Sure.
because it can sound like, oh, we're going to give away all of our profits, or we're 100% committed to
Right.
climate change or quality or things
Yeah,
like that. So
charitable work.
sometimes people, you ask about a purpose and they say, well, we're good, we've got a mission statement, but that's not what you're talking about, is it?
No, I hear that all the time. We have a mission and a vision statement, so I think we're set. And I would argue that they're so very different. A mission statement, a couple of things. Mission statement is often crafted in a boardroom, crafted by people who are trying to pack in everything that they aspire to be as a company. It usually results in a 1 to 2 paragraph long tome that's printed on a wall somewhere in a company. And let's be honest, most employees never look at it, and they certainly never take it to heart or never adopt it. And what I have found is much better about purpose is it's authentic. It's driven by who you are as a company. It's driven by your understanding of what the world is looking for from you. And then there is a third element of this idea of what's the difference you're trying to make in the world.
Yeah.
So I've often said, when try to take this unique concept, and I say, if you as a company can find the intersection of what the world needs, because it's important that we make sure that what we're doing can earn revenue and make us profitable, what you do better than anyone else out there in the marketplace, and then this difference that you're trying to make in the world. If you find that intersection, you've captured lightning in a bottle, because everything falls into place. It drives our business strategy. It drives an understanding of who we serve and what they're looking for. And we always have this line of sight of, and it doesn't need to always be, altruistic or charitable, but just what kind of difference? Why do we get up and go to work every day? Most people would say, it's more than just their job description. It's because I want to do this. I want to achieve this. I want to make, people's lives better. I want to see, students have, a better chance for career advancement. There's some other element that almost every company has. And if you can articulate it, it's gold.
So if you were to, so let's take, the needs, the doing something better, and then the difference.
Yeah.
Would you put that into a Venn diagram and you got something in the middle, or would you say needs times doing things better equals difference?
I mean, at the risk of sounding, like our vice president saying, I love a good Venn diagram. I do. I usually present it as a Venn diagram and say, that intersection where those cross over, the economic value of what, of the business you're in, the market opportunity and what the people are seeking, and then this idea of, and what do we want to do at the end of the day? If you can find where those intersect, I mean, that really, really can drive your company, your employee motivation, and, like you said, a competitive advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So you've done this a lot. You've helped companies figure this out. You've helped companies figure out that, what I call onlyness that you have. How do you first get involved in helping these companies define their purpose?
A lot of times, I think it's important to understand, as I mentioned, difference, of purpose from mission is also, it's a real keen understanding of who we are. And authenticity. And people and companies don't often stop and go, who are we and who are we not? And so a lot of it is done through, it's not a complex process, but through discovery of everyone from, people across different roles and tenures and ranks in the organization. It's not an exercise that's done only with the C-suite. It often involves, having an honest conversation with clients, about, what is it about this company that attracted you? Why do you keep coming back? What's their secret sauce? oftentimes in commodity industries that set them apart. And, and from there, we go through a whole lot of structured exercises to just really build out this idea of, what sets us apart, and, are the things that set us apart ownable? The goal is not to create something that, every company could put up and say, well, that's our purpose too. But at the end of the day, you should walk away with something and say, that statement can only describe, the company I work for. It's unique in terms of, the focus of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and who we serve. So at the end of the day, it's not a complex process, but it's as much about kind of, I guess, guided introspection as much as anything with someone who's done it before.
So I almost take that Venn diagram, and then where they all intersect in the middle. In the middle is, your ownable market. Ownable market dominance.
I think that's
that
fair.
really, yeah. That and I think that's what you're looking for, is where can you really dominate a market and even steal market share away from others.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So this all sounds good in theory.
Yeah.
We all love a good theory. But let's put it into practical terms. What are some examples of companies that people would know,
Sure.
that have done a great job at having that defined purpose?
Sure. So one that I love is Google. Most of us, probably all of us use Google. We are exposed to it in a variety of different ways and a lot of different touch points in our life. And when you think about Google, probably someone would say, it's a tech company, and it's a major, incredible capital intensive kind of business, and they're always doing acquisitions and divestitures. And I mean, complexity of technology, complexity of business structure. And yet a couple of years ago, Google set out to define its purpose. And at the end of the day, they came up with the reason we exist, and the reason that all of us, I don't know what they call themselves, Googlers, get up and go to work every day is quite simple. It's to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And I just find that just incredibly, first of all, compare that to the usual mission statement you've seen on a company's wall. You will just breathe a sigh of relief just hearing that if you're an employee, and saying, I might honestly, adopt that and recognize it. But the complexity of an entity like Google, and yet at the end of the day, they're defining kind of litmus test of, is this us or not? Do we belong there or don't we? Should we pursue it or shouldn't we? Is it helping us take information and make it more accessible and useful? That's at the end of the day why they do what they do. And I love that. I mean, it takes the most complex business and brings it down, to one of its simplest forms. That's one great example. There's another one I heard recently. A lot of us use Uber. They've taken this idea, and I think a company like Uber, and there's some companies that are, both B2B and B2B2C, has a added complexity. And I've worked with some clients like this of, your purpose has to work not only for your end clients, but also those that are building, livelihoods by working with you. And so Uber's is, we ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. And I know there may be people listening to this go, oh, that's just a beautiful marketing language. But I mean, there's so much built into that. I mean, it's about, building opportunity for drivers, and opportunity for helping to create more robust cities, and, places that have been, otherwise would be struggling in terms of, people movement. And then, it still ties back to, but it's about putting the world in motion, getting people to where they need to be, whether it be for personal or business. And so, those are two examples that come to mind of, companies that have clearly looked at their business, looked at who they served, kind of set the complexity aside and said, let's just pare it back to, like, what is it about us? What's our DNA, and what are we trying to do? And, those are the companies that are usually, successful. And we can probably talk about some of the ways that it extends out, and they see success once they've taken that step to say, we know who we are, we know what we stand for, we know our role in the world.
And this purpose stands the test of time. So take Google, take Uber, great examples. But, Google is, they're being beat up as being big tech, but
Yeah,
their purpose doesn't change.
it doesn't.
Uber,
It's
yeah. Yeah,
it's
it's like Uber, Travis Kalanick, all this, drama, these issues, blah, 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 blah. But their purpose doesn't change.
You're right. And I think that's one of the things that, I need to emphasize. Sometimes people think of this as maybe this is our latest, positioning campaign. It's not. Purpose is, purpose barring, I guess I would say some, incredible structural change in terms of how you're treating your business. Purpose is, it lasts for the long haul. This is not every 2 years we should, dust it off and like come up with a newer, sexier one. This is describing, like I said, who we are, what we set out to do every day, and how we believe that we can succeed in making a difference. That doesn't change overnight. Yeah, new acquisitions, divestitures, new people change, leadership changes. The purpose is usually a North Star that doesn't change with a company for, again, a long time, if ever.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we might go back to a couple other examples as well, but those are some great examples that really puts it into a tangible format for people. So, as we're looking at purpose, and I think those examples really bring to light, how it can become a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
The question, the skeptics, and probably more people that are in operations, probably people that are more in the numbers business or in the sales business, versus the visionaries, they might say that this stuff is nice, but it won't, really change the momentum, the growth, the success. It's just a marketing exercise. And yeah, it might make employees feel good about being a part of a company, but it doesn't really make a big difference. What's your take on that? Because I hear it all the time.
I would respectfully tell them they need to take another look. And there's actually in the last 5 or 7 years, there's been a lot of research done, quantitative research, not just feel-good research, about the differential or the delta between companies that continue to, move along forward with the traditional mission and vision, and those companies that really get laser focused on purpose and becoming a purpose-driven company. So I know that, Jim Collins wrote, Built to Last. There's a lot in there, if you've ever read it or need to reread it, that talks about this. And, typically companies that have a clearly defined purpose and values outperform the general market by 16-1. This is based on a lot of, empirical research that was done, and, versus their comparison group or their peer group by 6-1. When you look at it, I'd argue a couple of things. People say, well, how is that? Purpose gives leaders a platform to speak from. So, if you are a CEO out there, I would tell you, if you ever struggle to say, how do I cast vision for this organization I'm at the helm of? Purpose is, a wonderful foundation from which everything from, people decisions to organizational decisions to what you're doing in the community to investments can springboard from. We're doing this because this is who we are and this is who we serve. I'd also argue it helps with investment decisions and decision making. You always have this compass point which says, is this aligned with who we are, or is this an adjunct from what we are as a company? And I'm not saying it makes those decisions simple, but it certainly clarifies a lot of things when companies have been known to go into, what I would say is domain creep, and then suddenly say, wait, how did we get here? With purpose, that won't happen. It's a great, meaningful branding tool. I would argue that probably one of the best things, and this is maybe a newer occurrence, is that it is a critically important thing for staff attraction and retention. Purpose is a millennial magnet. There's a generation out there who says, I don't, beyond the pay and what the job description says, I want to work at a place that I feel like is doing something important in the world. And if you don't have that, you could lose incredible talent of people who say, I want to be part of something bigger than just my job. Yeah, I know my job is, I'm a digital marketing, expert, but I want to feel like it ladders up to something much bigger. And, in the end, I think it drives innovation. When you understand how do we fulfill our calling, it pushes companies to constantly think, how do I do that? If my job is to serve this group, how do I do that? So through those means, I think is where you start to really see the results. And again, there was another recent book done on corporations and culture, and some of their facts were just amazing. I mean, revenue of purpose-driven companies typically grows 4 times faster than those without. Job creation typically 7 times faster, and the real big one, for those of you that are publicly traded, the stock price gains, typically grow at about a 12x clip of companies that are maybe even in the same space, but just clearly not focused or not driven, not centered around purpose.
So I got another example that I absolutely love,
Yeah.
and it's not that I love this company or their products, but I love their purpose and how you can feel the purpose, and that is IKEA.
Mhm.
And IKEA's purpose is, and I looked it up really quickly, just to remind
I don't know
myself.
it, so I'm eager to hear it.
So IKEA's purpose is create a better everyday life for the many people. And so improving lives of the many people, the many people meaning anybody and everybody, but a better everyday life, right? So how can they improve the lives? And I can imagine, that's a question an employee comes into and is asked by a manager, what is it you're doing today to create a better everyday life for the many people?
That's right. And, I've, one of the things I've seen companies do, I've encouraged companies I've worked with to do is, don't let this become a mantra that's on a poster and on the wall.
Right.
I mean, get it to that it is woven into, your purpose is who you are. Well, it should be woven into then how you behave. And so incorporate it. I've been at companies where in addition to the year end, what I would say is accomplishment goals, driving X amount of revenue and share growth and all that kind of thing, have also had, goals that are tied back to purpose and the values that springboard from them.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. I've seen, companies that set up recognition programs that aren't just you did something great last month, like a lot of companies do, but like you really went above and beyond to fulfill what we're here to do every day. And that becomes incredibly powerful. Like I said, people want to be part of something bigger. People want to be part of something that they feel like, ladders up. And when you take this idea and probably the best thing I could say is if you're a head of a company, you want everyone rowing in the same direction. And I can't think of a better way to get everyone rowing in the same direction than to have people aligned on this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is why we do it.
And especially now, there's a lot of question into play about the relationship between employers and employees, right? So best example right now, Salesforce, Mark Benioff, I forgot what the term was, but there was some Greek or something term that was family, and he used it all the time, or that idea.
Yeah.
Now they're going through layoffs and 10,000, 12,000,
it's coming back to haunt him.
And his mantra has changed and it's coming back to haunt him, but their purpose hasn't changed. And so I think it really is a superpower for companies. Don't talk about how much you love the employees and how much, everybody's a family, because we know that the world changes for tech companies, and some days are good, some days are bad. Some days you're in mass hiring and competing for talent. Other days you're having to deal with layoffs. It just happens to be the cycle of business life. But with a purpose, while somebody is there, you're giving them pride in something and giving them that, as you said, the North Star or the compass of how to make decisions on their own autonomously, that rolls up to that company's purpose.
Yeah.
And so, don't mistake culture with purpose.
No.
Because, and you probably are better at articulating this than I am, but, culture can be something like, for example, Salesforce family, that's no longer a part of their culture, but their purpose shouldn't change.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
So,
one of the things I was just going to share is one of my earliest experiences, and the reason I'm probably an evangelist today was a big decade ago, I was working, and Motorola was, the board had decided to split it into two companies. And I had been on the consumer side, but was asked to come over to the enterprise side, which was really the core of who the company had been since its inception, 70 years earlier. But people had forgotten about it. Cell phone era had, kind of made that side of the business more sexy and popular, and that's what everyone knew about. So it's like, how do you, launch a 70-year-old upstart back to the world, make them recognize what it does again. And the benefit, a gift in my career, was that Jim Stengel, who's the former CMO of Procter & Gamble, was on the Motorola board at the time. And I think initially a lot of people would have said, okay, we need to do a launch campaign, new logo, new tagline, all those kind of things you would expect. And he said, don't waste this opportunity. These only come around every so often. Stop and understand, what is our purpose? What is this company's promise to its customers, to its employees, to the world? What are our values that we stand for? And he's like, if we can get those down, he's like, the rest the rest will follow. And so under his kind of nudging, we did do much more than just create a new ad campaign. We really stopped and talked to customers and employees and really understood, where did we fit in the world? And I'll be quick about this, but at the end, kind of the final purpose was, we help people be their best in critical moments that matter, which was tied into Motorola's business. I mean, we were helping, the US military and NASA and Walmart get through supply chain issues, and FedEx, and all of these, moments of truth. And shortly after we rolled it out, we started seeing employees submitting on their own, not even asked to do, narratives of, here's my moment that matters for the company. And you get someone who worked on a transistor line down in our factory in Fort Worth saying, yeah, this is what I do every day, but in the end, I know that because of what I'm doing, some cop is going to go into a situation being better equipped and better prepared. And so that's my purpose in my job. And so I mean, that was like, wait a minute, when they start taking it on their own and saying, I want to share with you, this idea of my moment with the company, it was really sweet.
So that's really when you got sort of the light bulb of like, hey, this is not like a thing. This is not a plaque on a wall. This I can feel as the foundation of a company and everything that we do.
That's true. And there was one other, maybe it was serendipity, but literally within days after we kind of introduced this idea of, helping people in critical moments that matter, Motorola was supporting if you recall, there was a Chilean mine collapse, and people were down there for, more than 30 days. And we were providing technical support to the ground crew there. And it was probably 4 days after we introduced our purpose. Those folks, thankfully were retrieved and recovered and safe and well. And our CEO, unprompted, not by the comms team or anyone, just wrote a note to all employees, Greg Brown, bless him for doing it, and said, this is our moment that matters. This, folks, is why we're in the business of what we do. Yes, we make radios and, public safety networks, but at the end of the day, doing something like this and, making sure that these 40 individuals got home, that's why we do what we do. And I mean, you could just see the goosebumps on employees when they read this, and it was like, it all comes together. It really does.
And he didn't talk about stock price. He didn't talk about, awareness, and he didn't talk about this. He just said,
it was just like, this is why we're here, folks. This is why,
our purpose. And this is why it's going to feel good, that we're doing this. And so it was very internal or very intrinsic. And that was, and he recognized that. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And he, in kind of tying it back to that, I got to tell you, I mean, for that day, that week, I mean, he won over every employee, because everyone walked around that their building with pride that day of I mean, obviously hundreds of people involved. We played a small part, but a little bit of role in something that really good that happened in the world today. We were part of it.
That's amazing. So let's bring this down to a tactical level, because I think this is very inspirational, and I love these ideas and I love these examples. And I hope that everybody listening to this is taking those ideas and thinking, how do we make it our own? And so then it begs the question, as we dive into the tactics, what is it you do, Gary, Grow OG, that helps your clients, with infusing that purpose into the DNA and not just remain that plaque on the wall? How do
Sure,
you get that point across? How do you
sure.
get that across the goal line?
Oftentimes I will, when we kind of get through the exercise and everyone's feeling great about what it is, I know the inclination is, okay, good, we did it. And I say, well, then now that's the easy part. Now the hard part is, how do you, infuse it into everything about this company? So I usually kind of go, if you will, around, the entire loop of a company's culture and suggest ways that this could be woven in. So let's start with one. We talked a lot about, attracting and retaining talent. You better be talking about this in your job posts when you're recruiting for new talent.
Yeah.
Your Glassdoor better reference like, hey, beyond the fact that we're in this business that you probably know about, there's a little bit of a higher order here about what we're all about, and that's this. I mean, it will make a difference. So, even the simple things like recrafting language for, job postings is something most people don't think of. We talk about how do you, incorporate it into employee recognition, as I mentioned, employee, annual reviews. I mean, what can you do to make sure that this doesn't fall off the map? But, provide employees with a chance to, recognize or acknowledge peers who are doing things, maybe even unseen by the majority, that are really moving you forward in trying to achieve your purpose. So, everything from, how do you incorporate it in policies? I mean, I had one company where, I talked about they talked about their purpose, and I made a suggestion. I won't get into specifics, which is, one of your employee policies is kind of contrary to what you're saying your purpose is. So put
Right.
your money where your mouth is. If you're really, a company that says, we believe in this, and yet, when a company looks and says, but they have a kind of a differing stance, you better clean your house first. So it's a lot of those activities, ranging from, employee engagement, outward communication. How do you, even talk about your company with clients? How do you make sure that it flows through in your advertising? Haven't forgotten about that. I'm a
Yeah.
marketer, but it's just, it really has to be infused across your entire culture of your company.
So
And that's what I
as
try to
we're, so we probably have people listening to this show, whether they're CEOs, senior executives, marketing people, investors, and they're probably saying, um, crap, or other words, we really need to figure out a purpose.
yeah,
Otherwise we're going to be in the, in trouble.
yeah.
Especially after hearing these examples and hearing how you tie the core of a purpose to the activities. So what advice would you give to those people to
Uh,
really help them out?
there's no time like the
Yeah.
present, but it's also something that I would say is not something to be scared of. I mean, this is not a case of we need to craft genius. We need to create the next greatest, marketing campaign that the world has ever seen. This is a just taking the time and, having some support resource along the way to really look inward and to understand who you are, look outward at like who you're trying to serve, and put it to place. It can be done relatively quickly. I mean, there is
Yeah.
one client of mine that, in the beginning of December, we're now at March here, if you're watching this later, said, we recognize that this is a gap in our business. We worked quickly to define it. We worked quickly to introduce it to the company. And I would say that probably in the next month, all of those touch points that we talked about, opportunities, it'll have already been infused. So you're talking about, from start to finish, a 2 to 3 month process. This is not a long haul. I need to replace my ERP, or I need to replace my CRM program. Oh boy, this is going to be bad and hard. I mean, it just really takes the concerted focus and effort, and the belief in it. And,
And the answer
it
is
can be done
probably
quickly.
there. It's just
It is.
having a guide. It's having
It is.
somebody to ask the right questions, unpack it, looking at it with a lens who has looked at it with multiple companies, who knows how to ask the questions. It's not a fact-finding mission. It's not a fishing expedition. It's asking questions of things that are probably right there in front of you.
That's right.
And it's just putting the focus on it for a small period of time, figuring it out, and then figuring out the next steps, which is how to deploy, excuse me, and how to ingrain it into
That's right.
the
Your
foundation of the
culture.
business.
Yep. Yep.
So wrapping up,
Mhm.
what's one key takeaway? What's the so what? You know, if people are listening at 2x or 3x to this podcast, let's slow down. Let's go to 1 or 1.5x. And here's the key takeaway for you. Gary, what is it?
Uh, Purpose is not, really understanding and committing to, be a purpose-driven company. It's not a marketing activity. It really is it's a fundamental exercise that grounds you and will continue to serve as a North Star in guiding your company to where do we play, where do we belong, what are our investment priorities, how do we better serve those that we set out to really make a difference for in the world. It's an incredible platform for leadership, I would say, both in terms of not only inspiring your team, but also, as I said, helping with things like organizational structure. When you understand, are we aligned with what we're trying to achieve, and investments. It's a great brand, meaningful brand differentiator. Purpose is a lot of times focused on, internally, but the authenticity of it is pretty contagious, and it really does offer a great opportunity outwardly in the world as well. And the final thing I would just say is it is not something that you do just for fun. It will make a meaningful difference in your market growth, in your revenue growth, in your job creation, and if you're publicly traded, in your stock value. There's a lot of evidence to prove it.
Well, that's awesome. You know, Gary, thank you for sharing your insights, your experience, your sort of best practices, a bit of a field guide. Um, you know, uh, if you like what Gary has said, if you like Gary's approach, which one of the things I think that's great about you is that you really do relate to people and you really do have the ability to get greatness out of companies. Check out Gary. Gary is on our website. If you go to growpowerful.io and click on the teams, you'll see Gary as one of our top up there, as one of the OGs, as one of our best and our brightest. So that's it. That's the show. Find your competitive advantage as a purpose-driven company. Gary, again, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, everyone.
If you like the show, be sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this. Visit us at growpowerful.io and subscribe to our blog. You can subscribe to our newsletter on LinkedIn. You can even find us on YouTube if you like looking at us. And if you happen to be a fractional CMO watching this show, we've got a really cool community called FracMO, and it's open to all who want to learn, share, and grow in the everything fractional CMO world. The Grow Up with Grow podcast is brought to you by the team at Grow Powerful. We're a team of battle-tested and proven fractional CMOs for the innovation economy, just like people like Gary who have awesomeness to share. We've assembled these great growth minds and we deliver them to B2B companies that are innovation companies to show their capability and prove what they can do for companies as an iCMO or an interim CMO. Thank you, and everyone have a great and fantastic day.